Hi, my name's Dave. I'm one of the onboarding engineers over here at Weavy, and you may have seen in our other videos, Weavy's a white label API SDK that you can embed right into your software and essentially add collaboration features like in-app messaging, activity feeds, tasks, things of that nature, comments. So we're really wanting with this year, of course, there's been more of a need ever for contextual collaboration. So we have been at the forefront of that for a while now and help folks bring their user experience all together and have communication better than ever, all right within the app. So I'm going to go through a little bit of our code, a little bit of how that works and how you can tie in Weavy's server SDK with its client SDK into your application. And specifically, we're going to go through demo faux React app. So this is something we typically do called the proof of concept for folks. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So one of the first things you can do with Weavy is you can go to our doc site, and we'll have a link there so you could go check it out. So essentially, you go there and there's a few different portions that Weavy relies on. As I mentioned earlier, we have our client side, our server side, and then there's also a tenant manager. But for now, we're going to focus on the client SDK and the server SDK. Now, essentially, the server SDK is going to be a .NET framework application solution that you run in Windows, and what that is that's everything that and how Weavy works and how Weavy operates for the most part. It's going to be the main meat and potatoes of the actual application. So there's more documentation here. And then the client side is going to be a JavaScript library that actually ties it into any front-end application. So basically, it's going to talk to that server instance. So we're going to show you how to do that and how easy it can be to add these features in utilizing these components. Now, the first thing you need to do is set up your server SDK instance. So if you go to Weavy, docs.weavy.com/server, we have a getting started page. Now there's some prerequisites we're not going to go through right now, but they're all listed here. So you get Git for Windows, SQL Server Management Studio, and Visual Studio. Now in more detail, you can follow along at home in another time, or right now I'm going to go pretty fast and skip ahead through all of this setup process, but the directions are here. So then once you have all those prereqs installed, you go ahead and clone our repo. So you go to GitHub or type in the command line. We're going to go ahead and clone the repo. So of course you have to create your database for it to talk to, name it Weavy, of course, and then you're ready to build and run. So what that looks like here on the Windows side, because it is a .NET framework application, we're transitioning to .NET Core later on this year. But with that, you get this entire solution. So for local testing, you're able to go ahead and use IIS Express and get it up and running locally, no problem. So simply do that as you normally would with any Visual Studio solution, and then you'll have the Weavy server SDK up and running locally to test. Now, since you get the server SDK and everything's up and running with that, you actually get complete control over customizing anything that goes in within Weavy. For instance, if you go into the application itself, the API, you can write your own very custom API endpoint. So if you need something specific for your application, you have that control to do so. Your developer is very empowered in a sense. So we have more documentation again on our website for examples of that nature for customization. And some folks even develop their own apps. Now we have the apps listed here of what we have. We have a few different apps listed right within the server SDK. For instance, our messenger and notifications. But with that, we're going to get into the client implementation side more, just with the baseline of Weavy. So the next thing you would do, and what I had done was had deployed this. You essentially do that from the command line, right? So you're going to go ahead and go to the command line and the command prompt, and then with that, you're going to run the build command. So with that, it's going to build your solution, and fast forward, it does all the building right. And once you have that package, you're able to deploy it following the steps on our website. So that has been built already, and I've gone ahead and deployed that app. So with that being said, the only other thing you need to do is go to that instance of that application, which I'm going to pull up right now here. And when you navigate to it for the first time, you're going to have set up your password and your login for the admin side of the Weavy SDK server instance. And then you're going to set your client secret and your client ID for your API. So that way we can tap into that. So what that looks like is you go to the Weavy instance I have right here, and you're going to then, as your admin user, you're going to go ahead and create a client. And of course you have to be the admin, but I've been doing some testing here. So I got logged in as somebody else, which will happen if you're testing all your users. So get used to that. Now, after you go to the Manage page, you're going to click on Clients, and that's going to manage your API, client ID, and secret. So I went ahead and created one here. Simply click the plus button, and you can set your client ID and client secret to whatever you'd like. My client ID is client ID, but I'm not going to share the secret with you guys, although it's not a very complex one for demo purposes only. So, of course, you guys want to make yours very complex. Anyways, so after you have that said and done, right, you now can go to working on the client side of Weavy. So with that, Weavy is a JavaScript library. So we're going to look at how to implement this in React. So that's going to be something that's done just with JavaScript. But there's a little bit more to it. We're going to make a component here in React. So with that being said, you can check out the doc site here. The very first part is going to be the authentication piece. We're going to want to nail that, right? So authentication is done through single sign-on, through a JWT token. And with that, you can add a number of claims that help set the user and create the user as they log in to make this a very seamless process. It lists in detail here what you exactly need. So you generate that token on your server side, and then you can grab it on that client side in the front end and go ahead and essentially get your users signed in that way. So I'm going to show you how to implement that in a actual environment. So what I've had put together, this is going to be just a complete faux demo, a fake app dashboard, right? This is kind of like a CRM type of tool. Now, there are some things here, nothing really works, but essentially we're going to add Weavy in a few different places here. So let's go on over to the code and check out how that looks. So Weavy essentially needs a few things to work. Now, if you go and you think about looking at the website and you think about creating structure within your app, everything is created on the fly, or it references a unique identifier to grab that contextual information for that specific app. So the apps within Weavy are going to be messaging, file management, notifications, of course, for all these apps, activity feeds, posts, comments, and tasks. So with that, we are separating these apps by spaces, is the term we use. And within those spaces, there are members. So the users are members of those spaces and have access to any apps that are within that space. So that's how you control the information. So say there's a files app within a space and 2 users belong to it. Those 2 users are the only users that have access to the files in that file space. And this is all going to make a bit more sense when you see it live on the page. So in JavaScript, it's simply just a few lines of code to say, hey, Weavy, right? Let's create a space and let's give it a key. That's usually the unique identifier for the space. Perhaps it's a full dashboard, right? Or a unique user ID or something like that. And you can then name that space, of course. So then within that space, you've declared the space, this Weavy space, and then you give every app a unique key. That's how it finds it as well. So that could be something like a data point within that other within that context, and then you can associate any of those apps with that specific data point. Think of it as having maybe comments on a photo or something along those lines. You have a unique identifier for that photo. Weavy will know to find that specific set of comments and give the users who can see that page in your app access to those comments to be able to post comments, read comments, and so on. So very easy to implement in that sense once you get the authentication piece done, which is just that JWT token. So for this example, I have already included a hard-coded JWT token just to make things a little more straightforward so you guys understand the components that are going right into it. So let's take a look at what this app looks like here, this app that we have. So we have a dashboard here that we can take a look at. So let me bring it up. There's going to be essentially a few different things you can kind of fumble around, but where we've added Weavy and we've added activity feeds, it could be like a timeline, like a LinkedIn post type of thing. You can see activity, maybe it's the users in there, maybe it's a team story. You can get creative with it. However, the software feels best. For the proof of concept, you can make it so. So within this activity feed, folks can tag others and say, oh, hey, ask questions or say, help me out with something, whatever it might be. If it was contextual to something, which we'll get to later, a little bit more contextual, they'll see that. And then they can come in here and comment on there. As you see, there's some comments on these posts already. And it's going to be entirely contextual. Everything's going to have the ability to upload photos from your computer, from Google Drive, Box, Dropbox, and all types of files, not just photos. We're going to be able to preview over 100 types of photos, files, right within any area within Weavy. So not only is there a few lines of code for this, comments and activity feeds and files and Messenger, but there's a lot of functionality with that. You have a full screen preview of not only photos, but things like Word documents. Makes the user experience really great for folks who are thinking about adding these features, and then they can do it quickly. We've also added messaging over here at the top, where we can see live messaging. You can see who's online, who you can reach out to. You could do group chats if you'd like, and again, you're able to not only do emojis, of course, you can do all that stuff, but you can spin up a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting perhaps, or you can import, again, from your computer, OneDrive, Google Drive, Box, Dropbox, all of these things, right? So pretty neat, pretty powerful, and of course, you can name the chat something fun, to be very literal, right? So we have a lot of fun with this over here. Now, how we get this in here is very simple. So let's take a look at how that works. So within this application, obviously there's a lot of components and a lot of different things going on, but we've created a Weavy folder. And within that, we have a general Weavy context that we've created, and then we have the Weavy app, which will then create the app and tie it to the context, right? And create the container and also create all of the spaces and things for this type of thing. So this is kind of like what we saw earlier, but a little bit more streamlined, so you can just pass in props to use this tool on the fly. And of course, this is going to be controlling the context of it, mounting and unmounting, things of that nature, to make sure we're cleaning up anything where we can. So CSS you can also utilize as well, but we're not using any directly in this file for this POC. So after you have these baseline items put in here, right, we're able to then reuse this Weavy app and use this class component. Use effect also works as well for React, but we can now place this anywhere. So let's take a look at how we place it in chat. So we place it in chat up here, right? So, and we've also placed it in chat over here. So now this is a full screen layout, so it's much different, right? So we're taking a look at something, but how different is the code for that? And the answer to that is actually not different at all. So when we go back and take a look at the chat, let's peek on over here. We have a page. So we have the chat page. Now, this is essentially all you have to do. You're going to want to pass in the JWT token of the user signing in, of course, and you're going to pass in the key for the space, the name for the space, the key for the app, the name for the app, and the type of the app, aka Messenger. And then I've also added in some things where you can do some inline styling for the height to make this a little bit more dynamic, since Weavy does need a height property to know how big that container is. Since it's loaded actually within iframes this way through the JavaScript library. So you're going to know that going in. So we have this set up, and there's really nothing different from this and or the code for the drop-down chat. So if we go ahead and take a look at the drop-down chat, we can see that right here within all of the other information, right, we've put in the same type of thing. The only thing that changed a little bit of the height properties around the items. So that way we're able to get this to display just a bit smaller, and then Weavy actually automatically gets it to do this. And this is, of course, going to be the same, info that's going here and coming there. So we're going to have that be live and updating no matter where we're at. So you could have it live in two places. Most folks only do one, but you can even open a single conversation directly from a user page. It's all completely customizable in that sense for that experience. So let's briefly talk about a few of the other features that were put in here. So we've done the files application. So just so you could see a way of having files in here. Real quick, if you had a whole list of files, you have your Word documents that are able to be completely previewed, and then you can have comments and work together around the doc, right? You can have that conversation not only around files, but around everything in different versions of that file, because once you make a change to this, it's going to version up automatically, and there's even web dev support, so no need to re-upload any Office files there. Just going to open the editor and work through it that way. So pretty fun, pretty neat. Carving pumpkins is also fun. Did that a little while back. Won't mention the name of that pumpkin, but that's essentially how Weavy works. Super simple, super easy to implement, and you can even do it around something like a profile, right? So we go ahead and hop into a profile now. This is just a random example again. So maybe this is like an HR app or something along those lines, and they needed files. I did change that to a different one. But here's like a comment feature, right? You can see the comments app. You could do everything like that. And then our posts, obviously, you can have around this unique identifier for Cynthia. So this is Cynthia's set of posts. So this would be the activity feed. Now, you're probably saying, Dave, listen, why did you put that in there? Because in a previous recording of this video, because it took up multiple takes, of course, because I'm not really good at one go. Anyway, there are ideas of me showing how easy it is to change that. So let's go ahead and take a look at that context profile. Like, can we get it back to what it was supposed to be? And the answer is yeah. So the comments, if we take a look at that, the comments is clearly tasks and files is clearly activity feed. So let's hop on over and change that in the context profile. So simply what I did for these, now these are the unique identifiers usually, so maybe it would be Cynthia Price type of things, but I just simply did it tasks, right? So we're going to do tasks, and we just need to tell it the key, and we just need to tell it the type. And then on save, we're going to see that once reloaded here, we go to the tasks here, reload, and now we have tasks. So we can then assign tasks relating to Cynthia if we would like. Of course, these could be a personal type of task or anything like that. I'd encourage you to explore these workflows and stuff like that. So I didn't change the files piece. Let's do that. Again, super simple. I'm going to change that back to the appropriate one and then change it as well. So this just showcases how easy it is to add this. And these, of course, would be dynamic variables and things of that nature. But now we have the files, and oh yeah, these are Cynthia's files, like I mentioned, right? So we have like a rich rich text editor, right? So you can make notes, things of that nature. And again, versioned up, comments on those specific notes. Super cool to work with. So I implore you to go try it out. It's fun to tie into an app. You can have lots of functionality for any type of social software or any type of software where folks have to work together even. So the use is really range, or even if you just needed workflow management. So all right, have a good one. Take care.